will I play as long as I go number one in the draft?
From the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
From the London Knights, Mitch Marner.
From the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Nolan Patrick.
This is Tracking the Draft with Craig Button.
He checks an enormous amount of boxes. Nobody in this draft did more with less. I absolutely love him. It's not his skills that anybody's concerned about. It's that playing attitude. And quite frankly, it's really poor.
Speeding towards the future of the NHL.
From the U.S. Development Program, Jacob Truba.
From Färjestad of the Swedish Elite League, Jonas Brodin.
From the Boston U Terriers, Brady Tkachuk.
He could play in the NHL next year. He's one of those guys.
Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 22 of season 2 of Tracking the Draft with Craig Button, the director of scouting for TSN and the color analyst during the World Under-18 Championship. Craig Button will join us just very shortly. My name is Dean Millard, and this is where the stars of tomorrow are discovered and discussed. And as you would guess, we are going to have a U18 flavor to today's show. Brandt Clarke is one of the NFTs we'll be discussing. Ruby ISS winning a bidding war for him, $300. You might think that's high, but when he goes top 5, it's going to pay off for Ruby ISS. Continuing on, Simon Edvinsson of Sweden. A couple of penalties so far in 2 games at the U18. Spitfire Scouting owns this NFT, purchasing him for $110. We get into a couple of Russian players. Theodore Svetchkoff for the U18 team. Just $20. I'm going to guess that was a listing by Ruby ISS. That's pretty impressive. To get a player who is, as Craig is going to describe, just a terrifically all-around player. And Nikita Chibrikov, who scored the game-winning goal in that crazy comeback against the U.S. Another Spitfire Scouting prospect, $125 purchase for this NFT. And we're going to wrap things up today with a guy that, my wife is really excited about because she purchased this NFT in the initial futures auction for $525. We're talking about Shane Wright, the captain for Canada. Even strength power play and shorthanded goal in Game 1 against Sweden. So all of that loaded U18 discussion today. And of course, Craig joins us courtesy of the UFFS hotline. Check out the brand new website, www.uffsports.com. You can be a fan, a scout. You can join a team. You can try to buy a team. But there are so many options. And then you can get into the hockey side where you can log in. And it is just absolutely awesome. You own the game. www.uffsports.com. You can become a scout and track the same players that Craig Button and other scouts do. In this format, you own the game, so make sure you get in the game. All right, let's get to the director of scouting for TSN, Mr. Craig Button, right now.
Here he is, the director of scouting for TSN, former GM of the Calgary Flames, and a Stanley Cup champion with the Dallas Stars. Plus, he's a sharp-dressed man with a heart of gold and a passion to match it. Craig Button.
Craig joining us from the Lone Star State in Texas, where the World U18s are happening. And of course, a couple of really exciting days. A lot of goals in the first couple of days, Craig. And I wonder, with the season, the year, the lifestyle we're in right now, how impactful for some players is this U18 tournament going to be because of the limited viewings this year?
Well, I mean, it's impactful for the players because they have an opportunity now not only to be in an environment where it's best on best and they get to display what their skills and talents are, but to test themselves against other players in their peer group. And for the NHL personnel that are watching and trying to get as much information and try to, cull as much confidence as they can by watching these players, because ultimately they're going to have to make a decision on who they select. And, we can look at it and say, this guy has skill or this guy has skill or we want this type of player. But what you want to get to is that point of like, I'm really confident. I'm really confident, or as confident as I can be with this player, and this is a player we want. And so I think that for everybody, the players are trying to, show what their capabilities are. They're trying to help the NHL personnel gain that confidence. And, the NHL personnel want to be able to take information and information that they haven't been able to really build upon in a significant way over the last 13 months to be able to make important decisions for their future, which comes up with the 2021 draft and not so much going forward. One of the things I would say too, Dean, is, you have limited time here. So Shane Wright's really good. You shouldn't be wasting any time evaluating Shane Wright or Connor Bedard. It's nice. You can make observations and you can say, hey, okay, here's what we've seen. But you don't have the benefit of the last 13 months of a real deep dive on the players with respect to watching them and information-wise. So you can't afford to be watching games and zeroing in on anything but the 2021 draft for the most part.
Yeah, and one of those guys is Brandt Clarke, a defenseman who's suiting up for Canada. Ruby ISS Scouting won the bidding war for this NFT in the original auction, the futures auction. They paid $300 for this NFT, a goal and an assist for Brandt Clarke in the first game for Canada. And the thing I look at with this guy, and I know we shouldn't often go off stats, but when he was with Don Mills U16, this guy scored 35 goals. It was third on his team. I thought for a minute, Craig, that maybe he had been a forward at some point, but no, he is a defenseman that just loves the offensive game and is obviously very good at it.
He's outstanding, and when you look at Brandt and his abilities, I know we see him score goals and we see him make plays in the offensive zone. His game with the puck, his mind is so relaxed and so astute to where the pressures are, and he doesn't force plays. He's not afraid to initiate or to take opportunities and even sometimes take chances. You hear this often, Dean. Oh, he's a high-risk player. Listen, I have no problem with high risk if it's high reward. I have a problem with high risk if it's low reward. And you know what? If it's low risk and low reward, I don't want that. Everybody wants the ideal situation, which is low risk and high reward. Good luck finding that. What I would say about Brandt is it doesn't matter where he is on the ice, where he has the puck. There's a composure to his game. There's an advanced processing going on about where the next play is and where he can take advantage. And he does it with his passing. He does it with his skating, jumping into the attack. And to me, you're talking about he's an elite defenseman, and I don't think there's any question about it.
Just the calmness part of his game that you just described. And, everything that came to my mind was the 1 year I really got to watch Chris Pronger up close with the Edmonton Oilers and just how he was like a conductor and, got that symphony to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. And I'm not saying that, Brandt is going to be an automatic Hall of Famer like Chris Pronger was, but just that calmness to, I had people when Chris Pronger was in Edmonton say, he looks so lazy. He doesn't look like he's trying. Yeah, because he doesn't have to. It's almost like Neo in the Matrix. They're just automatic, very calm, under pressure. And how much does that filter off to the rest of the team, do you think, when a guy is like that and can really settle things down, especially maybe if a game is kind of gotten out of control a little bit or, a team maybe blows a lead, a guy like that can just maybe settle the play down?
Well, it's incredibly important. You talk about Pronger. I was really lucky in Dallas. We had Sergey Zubov. Sergey Zubov was exactly the same. And, he would make plays and you would go, geez, how did he make that play? But, when he was out on the ice, it wasn't just the sense of calm that he displayed. It was that sense of calm, as you just talked about, that, was able to spread and permeate throughout the rest of the team and the rest of the players. It was like, oh, he's got it under control. And Brandt certainly has that. You talk about Chris Pronger, and I've watched Chris Pronger since he was 14 years of age. And I remember in his draft year in Peterborough, and if you can believe this, there was scouts going in there talking about Chris Pronger, he's not competitive, Chris Pronger doesn't do this, look at the guy, he doesn't make any effort. I remember one night, Dennis Patterson, who I'd worked with for a number of years and was our chief scout with the Minnesota North Stars, we're sitting there and we're listening to all this, and he turns to me, he goes, this guy can play the game in a rocking chair. He makes the game look easy. And I think at that point in time, he was plus minus was a heavily used stat. He said, the guy's like 100 plus 110. Like, are they watching how he just passes the puck and makes everything look so efficient? But that's part of scouting too, Dean, and it gets you into a conversation about the evaluation process. It's great to watch a player dipsy, doodle, and dangle, and flash and dash, and every player is different. But you don't have to be racing up and down the ice end to end, toe dragging everything to be a good player. But that's what catches the attention of scouts at times. And then scouts go and make assumptions, and they look at a player. Oh yeah, he's not competitive. No, he is competitive. And one of the things that I've always said, you cannot measure mental effort. You cannot measure it. But how it is measured is in the sense of calm and in the sense of assuredness that a player is on the ice. And more than that, like, how many times do they just always make the right play? That was Chris Pronger. Like Chris said. And so, again, it's great. Watch the flash and dash. There's a lot more to the game than flash and dash.
And this is a true number one defenseman, and we said a number one defenseman plays in every situation, but there are different kinds of number one defensemen. There were guys like Larry Robinson, who you didn't want to go in the corner with, Chris Pronger, who you didn't want to stand in front of the net with, and then guys like Niedermayer, Zubov, who, weren't overly physical, but still defended really well. Where does Brandt Clarke fit? Is there a real physical edge? He's got some decent size, or does he just defend with kind of his brain and his body and angling? Where's that sort of skill set with him?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's a physical presence, but he uses his body and he uses his leverage to gain advantages. And I heard John Tavares talk about this a few days ago about the Toronto Maple Leafs. He said, you know what, we're not a team or players that are going to run over you and bruise you. He goes, but we want to get in and we want to separate you from the puck, and we want to establish that we're going to be on your hip and we're going to be forcing you to have to work through us in terms of where we put ourselves body position wise, because we want to gain those advantages and we want to hold those advantages, and that's how we play. And I think I go back to the Detroit Red Wings when they were winning all their Stanley Cups. I remember one night being in Calgary, and it was a playoff game, and Nick Lidstrom, all he did was get into the way of somebody, turn, get the puck, and go the other way. He did it like dozens of times. And at the end of the night, I remember looking at the summary sheet, and it had Nick Lidstrom with 0 hits on the night. And I was laughing because I was thinking, this is hilarious. All he did was just get in the way, kind of work his way in perfect position, take the puck away from you. But it shows up as 0 hits. The effectiveness and the efficiency of Nicholas Lidstrom was unprecedented, really, when you think about it. Niedermayer was the same way. They were stealth, and they just took the puck away from you. You didn't even realize you didn't have the puck anymore. They got in your way, you didn't even realize it, right? So I think that's the way that defense is played a lot more. The world of Scott Stevens, thundering through the neutral zone with big hits, just doesn't exist anymore. The players aren't trained that way. The game doesn't demand it that way. I think it works more in the way that John Tavares describes it, and the way Nicholas Lidstrom played the game. the way Scott Niedermayer played it. Two different types of players with respect to their skill set, but their effectiveness was done in making it look easy. And I mean making it look easy.
Man, one of the most favorite NHL games I got to watch. I don't remember the score or anything, but when Trish used to work for Aquila, we would get seats sometimes if seat filling for a camera spot. We sat front row, right up against the glass, Detroit Edmonton, and watched Detroit in the defensive zone for 2 periods. Watching Nick Lidstrom in that game was like I was at a ballet or a concert, a symphony, because like I said, how Chris Pronger did it. Just watching Nick Lidstrom do that, just like you said, without crashing anybody into the boards. It was easily one of the my most favorite viewings of an NHL game. So I'm really glad. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about another Swedish defenseman now, and this is Simon Edvinsson, a defenseman with the Swedish U18 team. Spitfire Scouting purchased this NFT for $110, and he had a couple of penalties in 2 games so far. Sweden had a tough one yesterday against Canada, obviously, but, were there things that still impressed you about Edvinsson's game?
Yeah, I mean, you lose 12-1, it's hard to talk about, being impressed. But, he's such an elite skater, and, that skating allows him to really gobble up space that he wants to try to get if he's carrying the puck or trying to beat pressure, but also space he takes away from opponents because that agility, the footwork, the pivoting. I mean, he's able to get right in on you, and then because of his length and his reach, makes it really, really difficult to operate because you just don't have a lot of space there. So, those are the things, I'm watching with Simon, and, whether you're losing, a game or you're winning a game, you can still watch for those things. And I think for sure, Simon displayed those things. I think the biggest thing with Simon is you're going to have to make an assessment on where you think his offensive game can go. And, if you think his offensive game has a lot of room and a lot of growth in it, then, you're going to see a player that's going to be able to really play in a lot of significant areas of the game. And if you don't, well, then that's okay too, but you're going to get a different type of player. And, the example I would give, I mean, people say, oh, yeah, we'll draw comparisons to Victor Hedman. That's based on the skating. Right? But, when I watch Simon Edvinsson, you look and you go, okay, could he be Victor Hedman? Perhaps. He might be more Hayden Fleury. Because Hayden Fleury was a great skater, is a great skater. And you watch, and he was Hayden is a good competitor and everything. But the offensive game is just not there for Hayden Fleury. And maybe Noah Hannafin is a comparison. The great skaters that you're looking at and saying, oh, yeah, well, there's going to be offense there. Maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't. And I can understand why you might want to project it, but you're going to have to weight the potential of his offensive game against the other elements of his game, and then understand, okay, what do you value, what do you want, and take it from there. Because you look at Noah Hannafin and Zach Werenski, who played on the same team with the U.S. National Team Development Program. In terms of offense, it wasn't close. It wasn't close. And it wasn't close when they were 16 and 15 years of age. Zach was way ahead of him, and he continues to be way ahead of him. But Noah is a great skater. There was a projection that he would develop that offense. You got to be able to develop something that you have. I'm not so sure Simon has that offensive capability.
Yeah, and we've discussed that of trying to fit a round peg into a square hole or whatever analogy you want to use. You can't force a player to be something that he isn't, and with that size and that reach, it sounds like he is able to use that. Also sounds like he's a pretty technically smart player. This could be a really solid, a really solid NHL defenseman, and great at shutting things down. like we talked about, without putting guys through the boards, which doesn't happen a lot more, but sounds like could be if you develop this player right, you got his mobility, you got his reach, you got his technical. Sounds like a pretty good defenseman you want in your own end.
Well, no question about it. And he's a player that can transition. He's a player that, gets the puck into the offensive zone and tries to do some things offensively. But just because you try things offensively doesn't mean you're going to be proficient at it. And, and the other thing is you got to be realistic about what you're looking for. If you think, like, let's just use an example. If you think Simon Edvinsson is going to be Victor Hedman, I can guarantee you are going to be disappointed. Guaranteed. I'll tell you that right now. Because now it's not realistic. But if you say, hey, listen, we're going to get a really good defenseman who's going to play in our top three, excellent skater, really good defensively. He's going to be able to get the puck moving. He might not get as many points as a top-end offensive defenseman, but we're going to value that. And then if he does get, like, he becomes a 45-point guy or a 50-point guy, you're going to be really happy. But if you turn it around the other way, there's no way he can be happy.
Yeah, and just because just because a guy maybe doesn't show up on the score sheet as an assist doesn't mean the way he transports the puck, skating it, passing it, isn't really valuable for that team, because somebody's got to get the puck up the ice and into the offensive zone. And sounds like certainly he can do that. All right, let's jump to Team Russia now, and talking about Fyodor Svetchkoff, a forward who has 2 goals, 2 assists in 2 games. That wild game that Russia had with the U.S. And what a find for Ruby ISS Scouting, listing this player, I believe, for $20. Very, very impressive. Could be a nice payday. What's caught your eye about Svechkov at this tournament?
Honestly, up until the last minutes of the second game of the tournament that Russia played against Finland, and Svechkov took 2 penalties, like I said, does he ever make a mistake? Does he ever make a mistake in the game? Honestly, he to me, I'm watching him play, and I've watched him play for a while, and that I've liked him. Honestly, to me, he's like a complete 2-way player. He's effortless in his determination. He's smart. Everywhere he's on the ice, he's making a difference. I don't think he's going to be an 80-point NHL player, But I can tell you this, the way he skates, the way he thinks, the way he competes, the way he understands every single situation in the game, and the way that he finds a way to make a difference in all those different situations, I want him. He's the type of player I want on my team if I want to win. And to me, like I said, I wrote down in my notes during the game, I said, does he ever make a mistake? And then he took the 2 penalties. They didn't pay for them. But, when he's in the penalty box, it's not a good thing for Russia. He's that good. He's complete. He's a complete player.
Is he the type of player that teams maybe didn't focus enough on his offensive potential before, and now that is coming out, or has it always been there? Because it sounds like, from what I read about him, is that his defensive game is sound. He's a guy that the coach wants to throw out there all the time. Is he maybe developing more of an offensive touch as he goes along now?
I don't know if he's developing it, gaining confidence, getting better at it, being comfortable, playing off. When you're a younger player and you're playing a little bit ahead at different points of time, not that Fyodor has, but, you're trying to find your own game. You're trying to find a real sense of balance in your game. And, players, depending on the system they're in, they might be, I'm going to have to focus on my defense because I want to move up, right? I just see a player that's seamless between offense and defense, seamless, with respect to when he has the puck, when he doesn't have the puck, and how he's going to approach different areas of the ice, and how he pushes opponents into vulnerable spots where he can take advantage offensively or defensively. I think he's got great hockey sense, and I think he's got this ability to really impact the game in really significant ways. Like I think about winning, and I think about digging into the real demanding parts of a game, and I just see him excelling in all those areas. Like, I'm thinking that you start to look at a team that's trying to, build through the center ice position. He's big, he's powerful, he can skate, he's competitive. You get him into your spot on your team, and to me, you're getting a player that is going to be a real strong contributor and be able to help you in so many different ways and help you as time goes on. Like, because he's got such a great foundation defensively, he can start earlier and maybe not have to focus in on it, on his offense, and then continue to work on that as he gets a little bit older, a little bit more mature. But I think he's superb.
Yeah, and just could be an absolute goldmine for Ruby ISS Scouting. $20 on a player that has that much going for him. And speaking of scouting, Craig joins us courtesy of the UFFS Hotline. Scouting, a huge part of the platform, lifeblood of the franchises in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League. Any free agent has to go through a scout. Any prospect goes through a scout, just like the players and the NFTs we just spoke about. So get in the game where you own the game. Put your scouting talent to good use. The guys and girls out there, you're always telling your buddies how much you know more about certain scouts. So become an independent, form a partnership with an existing franchise. My franchise, Duckman's Dynasty, has a partnership with High Level Scouting. My wife Trish owns that. Craig is the president of Scouting, so you can reach out for more information. You can find more information at www.uffsports.com, and there's so much going on. Maybe there'll be a Craig Button NFT someday as the president of Scouting for High Level. That would be pretty cool. I bet you there'd be a big bidding war for that one.
I'll have to pay to get somebody to buy it. So, there'll be a bidding war by me and me alone.
I think there'll be a few out there that would like to get their hands on an NFT of a former Stanley Cup champion and GM, and of course, a great all-around guy, Craig. So we really appreciate you to being a part of this.
I love being part of it.
Yeah, it's great.
I love the notes. I love the notes I get from you. Okay, what do you want to do here? And I sit down, and you know me. If I don't know a player, I'll tell you I don't know them. Right?
Bingo.
Yeah, and I can say, and then I watch. I mean, some of the names you had sent me, I did some research and on my own notes, and I said, yeah, I don't have any notes. I don't, usually if I don't have it in my memory, it's usually because I haven't seen them, or there's been nothing impressionable made on me in terms of my notes. But you continue to watch, and one of the things I really emphasize, just keep watching, and the good game, bad game scouting is only going to get you into a bad place scouting. You got to be evaluating attributes and skills and progress and development. You've heard me say this. It's never static. I honestly believe that every time I go and watch a game and I'm watching players, that I'm learning something. And usually more than just one thing. And I'm learning that okay, there's not as much of that as I thought. There's more of that than I thought. That player's better in that area than I thought. That player's not as good in that area as I thought. And you have to test yourself. You have to really challenge your own assessments. And am I right here? Am I missing something? Like, I was watching a young player on Sweden in game one when they were playing Belarus, a young defenseman by the name of Anton Olsen. Now, I've seen him play before at a younger age, and he played in the SHL this year and acquitted himself quite well. And I'm watching the game, and I go, geez, he's smart, he's good, he did, and just at the same time that I was saying, a name popped into my head. And I wrote the name down, and I asked a couple of people. I asked one of the teams that drafted him, does this player remind you of the player? I'm not going to mention the other player's name. Does Anton Olsen remind you of this player? For the record, the player I was comparing him to was a high second-round draft pick. And the team that drafted him, he said, wow, he goes, now that I thought about it, yeah, he's got a lot of similarities. And then, he said to me, he goes, well, Matt just kind of hit a wall. I said, oh yeah, I know. I really loved him. I thought he was a terrific player. And at the end of the day, I just said, okay, I got to continue to evaluate. I got to just see how it works out and take it from there.
There you go.
Player, I guess I just said Matt. The player's name was Matt Finn. He was a second-round draft pick. And so, and I loved him. I thought he was terrific. I thought that, but he was never able to find his way. And sometimes that happens with players. But, in terms of style and the way he played, and Anton Olsen really reminded me of Matt. And, so it wasn't a player that I didn't like. It was a player that I did like, but you ask yourself that question. And as I go back and evaluate and watch, I'll continue to just try to build out that picture of that player.
Well, we learned the Russians are a resilient bunch after that comeback from the U.S. And Nikita Chibrikov, a forward for Russia at the U18s. He's owned by Spitfire Scouting, $125 paid for this NFT. 2 goals, 2 assists so far. He scored the game winner on a bit of an end-to-end rush and an odd angle goal. But what did you see about him before? Was he one of the key guys that started getting this Russian team going? Did he do anything during that game when they were down that you thought helped turn things around?
Well, he did, and a couple of things about that game too. Like so you're sitting there, and Chibrikov took a penalty, and the United States scored on a power play, and that was just one of the things that happened that led to them being down 5-1. And when the goalie got pulled, I said, you really can't fault. I really couldn't fault the goalie. And Dean, I'm not a goalie hugger, so for me to excuse the goaltender, is something that you gotta that I always try to keep in mind, right? And so from that perspective, I thought that once they pulled the goaltender, it was one of those pulls that says, you know what, you better get playing, you guys. And from that point on, they took over the game. Like the Russians took over the game. They physically, skill-wise, they owned the game. I'm watching it. They made it 5-2. Chibrikov scored the third goal. I believe it was the third goal on just a quick play. The hands were magnificent. So when you talk about he takes a penalty, gets him in the hole, but he's so gifted that he was able to be a big part of getting them out of the hole and ultimately winning. But they took that game over, and I really said, I had no doubt they were going to tie the game. Now you get into overtime or whatnot, you might be a bad break, but they won that game. And you talk about that odd angle goal. If you go back and you watch it, Chibrikov is moving quickly. He's got magic hands. He has got magic hands. And so when he sees an opening and the goaltender gives just a little bit of a sight line to where that opening can be, Chibrikov can nail it. Other guys are going to hit you in the pad. Other guys are going to hit you in the arm. Not Chibrikov. He knows where the hole is. He finds the hole, and boom, it's through you before you know. He's got an exceptional release too. So he doesn't give the goaltender a real good read on where that shot's coming from. So if you give him an opening, he's going to take advantage.
You think top half of the first round for this guy? I mean, that kind of skill certainly shouldn't be ignored, and teams should learn from the size and the hands and the shot. It reminds me a little bit of Kucherov a little bit, to be honest. And I haven't watched him a lot, but do you think he's top half or bottom half of the first half or second half of the first round?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Honestly, I'm not trying to. I mean, the skill is really good, and. You think of Tarasenko. I think about Vladimir Tarasenko, and where did he go? 16th in the draft, I believe, somewhere in there. So that would be right at the midpoint, right at the end of the first half, and right before the beginning of the second half of the draft. So, I would say there's a range of where he goes in that part of the draft, and but again, I talk about players that what is your identifiable skill? What are your attributes? What are your strengths? And, what are you getting when you're trying to get these players into your group? To me, that's what you got to be able to celebrate. If you want an exceptionally skilled player, he's competitive and he can, as you point out, he can finish the plays rather quickly. If that's what you want and that's what you want to celebrate, then I have no question that he is a player that you better jump all over.
Yeah, exactly. Not a guy that you should be thinking is going to keep slipping and then you can grab him later on, exactly. Right? All right. Well, speaking of celebrating, this guy celebrated 3 times yesterday, Shane Wright, and he is Obviously a guy for the 2022 draft, and there he is, high-level scouting. Trish won the bidding war. It was a great celebration for us that day when she eventually won this bidding war for $525. Looking forward to the 2022 draft. And how about that game yesterday? Even strength power play, shorthanded goal. I mean, that was, I asked you last week about a slow start. Well, egg on my face for that one. But that was the perfect resume of a complete player is, not only scoring goals in 3 different ways, but, just being in 3 different situations like that. And, people are going to be wowed by the offensive numbers, but tell me more about the complete player that Shane Wright is.
Well, so the offensive numbers are what they are. And, they're all, you go to look at the stat sheet, it's all there. And he's been a very prolific offensive player for a long time. So that should come as no surprise. So you think about the first goal, and it's on the power play. And he gets that puck. Brandt Clarke gets to the middle of the ice. And if you watch, Brandt Clarke is trying to keep the puck in. It's not a clean puck at the blue line, but Brandt Clarke's hands are so good that he not only gets the puck, keeps it in, but he gets it settled down. Well, at the same time that Shane Wright is watching Brandt Clarke, he's also getting himself into a really good spot where he can get the pass, and it makes it a little bit easier on Brandt Clarke. So now the puck comes over to Shane Wright. He's prepared himself, and now he's got room to move. Right? He comes off that left wing dot, gets to the dot, sees it, bang, it's in the net. But he's allowed himself that opportunity because he gets himself in a position to receive the puck, and now he's got room to work with. So that's just the mind, where he understands the game spatially and where he understands how to take advantage of passing lanes and making sure that he has the space to operate. The second goal, his former Don Mills Flyers line mate Brennan Othman is on the rush, and he takes a big hit from the Swedish defenseman.
Yeah.
But as the hit comes, where is Shane Wright coming right in below, above the puck with speed, picks up the puck, and it's beyond the goaltender before he can bat an eyelash. Beyond the goaltender. Just brilliant in terms of, there's Shane Wright, perfect position again, reading the play, and then the quickness in his mind, the quickness in his skating, and then the great release, and it's finished perfectly. And now you look at the shorthanded goal. This is where video doesn't give you the whole context. So the play is in the Canada end. And now as they're coming up the ice, Shane Wright moves all the way over to the right side of the ice to give a better passing angle. But not only that, the Swedish defense cannot close on him. So as he receives the pass, he's able to move across the blue line into the offensive zone. He doesn't have to worry about unnecessarily fighting off an opponent. He doesn't have to worry about in this battle, how do I create more space? And then when he does see the opening, it's in the net. And, that's the brilliance of Shane Wright. It's the things he does before he gets the puck. It's the things that he does that leaves him in position to get the puck. And, the 200 by 85, if you multiply it, I think the square footage is 1,700 square feet. If you can find me a part of that square footage that he's not good on the ice, please tell me. Maybe in the blue ice. Maybe in the blue ice in that area, that square footage, the net area and the blue ice. Other than that, he's outstanding. He's outstanding.
Well, we saw Anisimov have to put on the goal equipment the other night as a backup. Maybe he'll become a star goalie at some point as well. But, in all seriousness, he goes to where the puck is going to be. He puts himself into the best situation. Going to where the puck is, a lot of guys score goals that way. But the greatest players are a step ahead or 2 steps ahead, and they put them into that position where, the puck is going to bounce to, or the pass is going to be easier, as you mentioned. That's what greatness is getting to that spot before the puck gets there.
It really is. And, I was talking to Marty St. Louis. His son, Ryan St. Louis, is playing for Team USA. And we were talking about good players and playing with good players. And Marty, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He put it best. He goes, I needed to know I was going to get the puck when I needed to get the puck. He goes, it's not so much that, the player has to race up the ice or bulldoze his way up the ice. He goes, when I'm moving into an offensive position and, my game was off, I needed to get the puck when I needed the puck at the right time. Not when that guy was ready to give it up at the right time. And, Shane Wright, that's Shane Wright. That's Shane Wright. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I've said it. His game reminds me so much of Patrice Bergeron. So if we go and we assess, a Patrice Bergeron-esque type player, I think Shane Wright fits pretty nicely.
Well, Trish is going to really love that. And, if you look at this picture right now, if you were to flip this picture around, you would see the C on his jersey. As you correctly predicted on last week's episode, that he would be a candidate to wear this C. And, there are superstar players in every sport that maybe aren't great team guys that you wouldn't want as captain. And then there are superstar players that you just gravitate to. And use whatever name you want. But this is a guy who just seems to be that guy that every other player wants to gravitate to. When you're factoring in, and this is going to be a factor for teams, for very few teams that are going to get a chance to draft Shane Wright. How much does that play into it? I know you said we can't measure the mental assessment, but how much does leadership, culture, mental effort, a leadership, culture, the fact that he's wore the C here, he wore it at the U17s, could that be a tipping point if everything being equal, Craig?
Oh, certainly it can be. There's no question it can be. Do you see that name on the back of the jersey? It's spelled W-R-I-G-H-T. Yes. So that's what should be on the back of Shane Wright's jersey. And what's always been on the front of his jersey is a C. And that represents the qualities of leadership. He's always demonstrated it. And, when we were talking last week, I wasn't saying it because he was a really good young player, talented-wise. I knew that he's a really good leader. And I knew that where he fit. I told you that he was one of the 3 captains on the Canadian entries at the U17. Leadership doesn't say you got to be a certain age or you have to have a certain skill. It's the things that you do. I always tell young people, older people, anybody, you cannot be a leader of others until you're a leader of yourself. And you got to be really good, disciplined, consistent, reliable, all the things, and the best you can be, focused in on getting better, helping others, all the things that go in with leadership. Well, I can only tell you this, all those qualities I just listed, there's a check mark beside every single one of them beside Shane Wright's name. And it can be a separator, there's no question. I mean, are you going to not draft Patrick Kane first overall in 2007 because he might not demonstrate those things? No. Does it mean that he's not a good leader? No, he's a great team player. He's a really good leader. But sometimes you got Jonathan Toews, so you don't have to worry about taking on that role. But it doesn't mean he can't. I mean, we went through it in 1988, and when I say we, it was the Minnesota North Stars. I was just starting, so I had nothing to do with it. But going through the process of draft, considering Mike Padano and Trevor Linden. Everybody talked about Trevor Linden's great leadership capabilities, and I don't think there was any question he had them. And everybody knew how talented Mike was. But, at the end of it, it wasn't that Mike wasn't a really good leader. Trevor just had that a little bit more. But Mike was a way better skater and had a way better shot and was way better offensively, right? So, you can try to differentiate. It's about understanding, what do you want? I keep going back to this, what do you want? And Trevor Linden was terrific. He had a terrific NHL career. Mike Padano's a Hall of Famer. That doesn't lessen Trevor Linden. But for the Minnesota North Stars, it was about Mike Padano and, the qualities that he had. And Mike was terrific. There's nothing wrong. But Trevor, at 17 years of age, he was one of those natural leaders that had been thrust into a position where it was very clear how good he was.
And on a successful program as well. Okay, tonight, Canada Latvia. Obviously, a bit of a blowout in game one, kind of expectations for tonight. And how important is it, you don't have to celebrate every goal like it's the first goal you ever scored, but how important is it to not, for Canadian players, if the game gets out of hand, you still have to keep pushing because there are important people watching. So while you don't have to celebrate every goal, how important is it to play until that final buzzer as hard as you can in what could be a blowout situation? Normally, guys are taught, okay, let's take the gas off. What's that like in this tournament?
Well, what I would say to you is this. Okay, so to your point, number one, the players are trying to demonstrate their capabilities. Every player wants to put their best foot forward. They want to be drafted high. So you got to go out there and show everything you can. Secondly, for Team Canada, it's about details. They're going to play Latvia, Switzerland, and Belarus. So there's no question in my mind that they're going to win those games and they're going to. But now you got to get prepared for Monday. Monday's is their quarterfinal game, and they're going to be either playing the USA, Russia, Finland, or Czech. You better have the details of your overall game in place because you're here representing a team, and the goal is to win and compete and win the gold medal, and certainly Canada is capable of doing that. Working on the details and then making sure that those details that are important for the team are also in place for you. Don't start trying to be something you're not just because you think it might be a little bit easier. Because number one, it's not going to represent who you are as a player. And number two, it might come and haunt the team down the road. Don't let the first affect the second.
Great advice as usual. We'll be watching you and Muddy on the broadcast tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, as Canada takes on Latvia. And then we'll chat next week as well. Thanks as always, Craig. Enjoy the game tonight.
I will. Thanks, Dean. You have a great day.
This is a serious message.
Craig Button joins us on the Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports Hotline. Become a scout and make money while providing prospects to the Ultimate Franchise Hockey League.
What you talking about, mister?
Pay that man his money.
I'm your huckleberry.
Check out the details at www.uffsports.com.
It's serious. I like it a lot.
I said we got to win it.
UFFS. You own the game.
Looking forward to that game tonight, and having a lot more to talk about next week as we head into the finals and the semifinals, the quarterfinals on Monday, semifinals on Wednesday, and then the final. And of course, we will be doing Craig's Counsel at the end of this season. That's where Craig gives us story time and scouting tips, and your questions get answered. If you have a question that you want to know the answer to, whether it's about how to scout a player, what to look for in a player's shot or skating or anything like that, you can submit that. Or if you just want to know a story about maybe a player that Craig would have scouted or drafted as a director of scouting with Dallas or as a GM in Calgary or just anything else, there's so many good characters out there, and Craig has a million stories, so we'll never run out. But if you do want to get in touch, it's trackingthedraft@gmail.com, and we'll add it to the list of topics that we have already. We have quite a few questions that we haven't been able to get to from the last two episodes like that, but we try to do it midway through the season and at the end of the season, and this is season 2, so we have one more coming up. Thank you so much for watching or listening, wherever you do get your podcast. We appreciate it. Obviously, you can leave us a review. You can let us know what you think. Subscribe. If you're watching on the UFSN YouTube channel, it's just a click of the subscribe, hit that bell, and you get a notification every time we put out an episode. But wherever you're listening, thank you very much for doing so. And please let us know what you think of the show. All right, I want to remind you about the amazing Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports website. There is so much going on there as well, just like there is at the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. The UFFS podcast every second Sunday. We got a great one coming up this weekend. Fantasy Hockey Time, one more episode of that on Monday, and then we're going to switch to something else as the hockey fantasy season is wrapping up. 2-Minute Tuesdays with Darren Bates. This show, obviously, on Wednesdays with Craig Button, and UFHL Now on Friday. And we've got some really cool shows coming out as well. If you'd like to get in touch with me on this program and join the show as an advertiser, Tracking the Draft at gmail.com is where you can do that, and you can find some more amazing shows on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network YouTube channel. For my shows and past episodes of Tracking the Draft, check out podcastalley.ca. The stars of tomorrow discovered and discussed there. Big thanks to Craig Button. Have a great week in fantasy, everybody. We'll talk to you later.